Yo, 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 what's up? What's up? What's going on? What's good, everybody? That's right. The Boxing Source here is checking in. We are here. We are live. And there's a number of things here that we're going to be talking about here on this September 10th episode of the Boxing Source radio show. That's right. The Boxing Source is here, right? And, we got a few things to be talking about here in this particular podcast. But, of course, the main topic is the pretty much the main story of the week in boxing. I mean, we really didn't have anything as far as like a main action going down in the sport of boxing this weekend. But we had a number of stories that we were talking about over the course of the week, and one of those was a reference to what was going down in the lightweight division, right? We had a report that had been coming out about a fight that was supposed to go down in the lightweight division. You had two undefeated fighters, two highly ranked fighters in the lightweight division, two contenders there in the lightweight division. So we were going to, see if we would have a fight that would have taken place. And, at first, it seemed like it was a great fight. That could have, went down there in the lightweight division. And, of course, it involves Shakur Stevenson and Frank Martin. Shakur Stevenson, of course, two-division world champion, unified at the super featherweight division, is now, competing at lightweight. I've said this many times over that, we had his last fight in April against Shoichiro Yoshino in Newark, was able to get a stoppage win there in that particular bout. Then you have Frank Martin, who was also undefeated, had his bout in July against Artem Haratunian, and, didn't necessarily look all too good in comparison to, his last bout that he had, last year in December, in Las Vegas, and in that particular bout, he, got a clear decision victory. But in the latest bout against Artem Haratunian, we kind of struggled a little bit, did score knockdown, but didn't look as, fluid and as good as he did in his last bout, that he had against Michelle Rivera. So, even with that being said, with this particular bout that was, of course, ordered by the WBC, it seemed like, that we had this thing supposedly going down, and that there were there was like something in reference to them getting into negotiations, but given what had happened over the course of few weeks time or whatever it was, and then a deadline that was set for the supposed ordered bout to take place between Shakur Stevenson and Frank Martin, then you see if anything was going to go ahead and take place. You know what I'm saying? So a number of fight fans and people that were following the sport were kind of excited to see if this was going to be something that was going to go down, and see if that was going to take place. But then it seemed like the deadline for the bout for it to go into negotiations, kind of like went ahead and passed almost to the last hour, and then the report came out that there was an agreement that was reached for Shakur Stevenson versus Frank Martin, and that the report that was posted out was saying that, okay, this fight was going to take place on a certain date. And for those that have been following, that date had been, in reference to, what was that, Thursday, November 16th. And, those that have been following what was going on in Las Vegas, seen like what that particular week and that weekend, that there was also a huge event going on during that weekend, and that maybe that, the Top Rank or whatever it is wanted to fit in that particular bout on that date, so that they'll be able to get people to come in and be able to attend that fight. or attend that fight card when it took place. But then after, what has it been? It was like days after, days after uh, that report that came out. Supposedly, the thing had basically been called off. And that was kind of interesting. That was kind of interesting to see something like that because as of what, like a few days ago, I mean, we had thought that this fight had basically been taking place or whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? But having this come up saying that it was called off, it's like, oh wait a minute, what's happening here, right? So thing about it is, man, it's like you got to see like what was going on or what was happening, and I had I basically tried to look around and see what was going on in reference to this, and it was just something. And what kind of like got me in this was that uh, there was something that kind of like was strange in reference to this particular announcement, as far as like one, when it was taking place that the agreement had been reached, and then two, when it had supposedly been called off, right? So I was like, wait a minute. It's like a certain reporter like put it out there that if I didn't been called off. But after that, the quick reactions was, what happened here? Like, who's at fault? Who backed out of the deal? Who did this? Who did that? And of course, there are a number of people that said, hey, something was up with Frank Martin and his side. But for me, is being a reporter in reference to this and seeing how a lot of things go down, especially when it comes to fights and how fights get made. You got to look at how things are on both sides, and it was kind of like interesting to me because I kind of like slipped up on this. Being a reporter, I slipped up on this in that once that particular fight had been announced initially, I didn't really look at all sides of what was going down. And it seemed like all of the announcements, all of the reports have been going on or have been released by a particular side. And with that being said, I had to look at, what was going on the other side. And I did this, over the past couple of days. I said, wait a minute. If you have a fight of this magnitude, if you have something where you have two guys at a high level in the lightweight division, and that it could be a potential thing where something says, hey, this bout could particularly take place, right? That you wanted to see if all parties involved are down with what's going on, and it just seemed like only one particular party seemed like they were down with what's going on, and it looks like Shakur Stevenson. I'm just saying. I mean, because right now it just looks like everything seems like all this stuff, as far as like all the reports, all the reactions, all of the I guess commentary or whatever it is coming out from one particular side. And when I look at the other side with Frank Martin, and I'm looking at, one, I'm looking at, of course, social media. Two, I'm looking at, the parties that are, affiliated with Frank Martin, which is, Man Down Promotions and TGB Promotions. And over the past week of what I've seen posted, nothing pretty much said from Frank Martin that, hey, okay, we're close to a fight. We have a fight signed. We're preparing for Shakur Stevenson. Nothing. I ain't seen anything. I don't know. Like, you could go into, web archive or, anything that screenshots any posts or whatever it is. There isn't really any posts in reference to that fight, of course, on Twitter from Frank Martin's side. And, I ain't really seen nothing, what I'm saying, when it came to, what's going down on Frank Martin's Instagram. And he's more interactive, or he posts more on Instagram, much at least much more on Instagram than he does on his Twitter account. You know what I'm saying? So you go on his Instagram account, you really don't see much of anything happening on his side that talks about him, you know, facing Shakur Stevenson. Nothing, you know. So that's the thing about it. It's like, what's going on his side, where it's like saying, hey, if you got all this stuff that's coming out about a fight that's supposed to be taking place between you and Shakur Stevenson, and now that it's called off, now it's like, okay, how come there's nothing, on your side saying anything like that? But it kind of like reminds me of, something that went down a long time ago, reference to two particular fighters that were at the time at 154, about a fight that supposedly was going to take place that someone like backed out, but it's completely different. Shout out to live chat here and interacting. You got Jo in the building. He said that Frank Martin's person, 29 years old, and about to get his biggest payday at 1 million, and you pull out, crazy. Well, here's the thing. Well, do you think Martin has a bigger fight weight? Maybe Tank. That goes with a lot of the quick reactions after that news about Stevenson and Martin being called off. Was that, hey, what does this mean for Frank Martin? Does he have something else in the works? Is he in line to face Tank Davis? Because a number of fans look like around was saying, like, unless if he has a fight lined up with Tank Davis, coming right up, then I don't see why they're supposedly backing out of the Shakur Stevenson fight. But like I said, I just feel like it's weird that a fight that was reported to be in the works, then reported to be announced, and then reported to be called off, all of that stuff is coming from one particular side. And for those that seen what the reports came out of, and yes, I will post, or I will say it. Okay, it comes from Mike Coppinger. Okay, came from Mike Coppinger. Yeah, you credit people for putting out those reports, but here's the thing about it. Mike Coppinger works for ESPN, right? Okay. ESPN is affiliated with Top Rank Boxing. And who was on the Top Rank Boxing? Shakur Stevenson. Just saying. But but with all of that, it's like, hey, why is it that and usually Mike Coppinger has been known to put out reports or put out stories ahead of time to kind of like put in a buffer ahead of what may or what actually went down as far as like certain stories or certain topics are concerned. So that's why, like, even with this thing of this news about this fight being called off, I'm like, wait a minute, something ain't right. If Frank Martin and any part of his team or any part of his, group hadn't really said much about it, hadn't really said anything, when the WBC, had announced the bout, or at least for them to, go ahead and have negotiations in reference to it, and then after that, you would have, the supposed date for this thing to, the date before it was supposed to go out the purse bid, that it came and passed, and then they said that there was an agreement made. I'm like, that's kind of weird. You know what I'm saying? That's definitely weird in that particular sense. You know what I mean? So thing about it was like, I kind of felt like, this whole thing was strange, but that really didn't, what was it? That really didn't hold Shakur Stevenson to, kind of like hold back on, what was going on in reference to this, man. He said, like, the media is sick. They make up rumors just to protect certain fighters' image. What y'all even talk about, man? he said, "Man ain't pull out the fight. Nobody else." And this is reference to what Shakur Stevenson is addressing to in comparison to what he said or what was said about Frank Martin. I'm going to see if I could share that post here. But before I get on that, I wanted to add in Brother Terrell in the building, man. The chef is in the building. What's going on, chef?
Hey, what's up, JR? Glad to be back on the show. Glad to have some good boxing content that we can talk about and discuss. I was just talking to my daughter earlier. Said, "Hey, let's talk boxing." She said, "Nope, that's you, Daddy." Same thing. Still trying to get onto the sport. We'll see, though. We'll see.
Yeah, for sure, man. But the thing about it is, like, I'm kind of like looking into this whole thing. Like I said, the story of Shakur Stevenson and Frank Martin. You know what I'm saying? And it's looked like well, like you said, we had the reports out or whatever it was. As far as like that bout being ordered initially, and then there was the announcement of the fight, saying that it was signed or it was agreed to, as of what it was September 6th, the fight was agreed to. But the thing about it is, like, now, I'm receiving reports that how could it be agreed to if Frank Martin and them didn't really agree to the terms initially or agree to what was being offered. You know what I'm saying? So that didn't really make much sense there in that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've been listening to you for the past few minutes on the live chat before I finally had a chance to jump in. Even as I'm listening to you, it makes me slow my boxing mind down. Number one, like I said, who's actually doing reporting? What is their credibility? And then on top of it, I mean, there's so many angles to think about this, right? For one, we know this is a cross promotion, right? So now in all of these developments, is there an ulterior motive that's coming out from one side? And that's what it probably seems like. We don't know that as of yet. But like I said, on the Frank Martin side, on his, you say he typically reports most of his activity on his IG page. You say you haven't seen that much activity as far as him confirming what's been put out there in the media. That's strange. That's very strange. It's very unusual. We know that even if a fighter is not particularly vocal in the media as far as videos and stuff like that, they're going to be vocal on some type of social media platform. As you know, we are now living in the social media age, big time, right? Whether it be arts, sports, whatever it is. I mean, like, for example, in football, we know it's not unusual for a player to be unhappy with his deal and strip all his social media of his team's logos and things like that. So once again, social media is definitely an active platform and something that we definitely pay attention to get information from in this new age and things like that. But like I said, at this point now, we look at Mike Compage, like you said. What are his sources? Where do you get it from? Are they actually verified and things like that? And like I said, looking back, like we talked about in our group, Frank Martin, till we know he's not injured. He didn't get injured in his last fight. He's been doing good, I'm sure, outside of the last fight, rest and recovery, things like that. So why would he go to make a decision to not make a fight? Money? That's always a reason. But listen, we talk about when you have an opportunity to take short money for a big opportunity that's right down the road, you're probably going to take that. That is unless your ego gets in your way. Kind of just like Shakur did with Haney, things like that. They definitely, honestly, they probably lowballed him. But that happens. If you want a chance, take the chance, jump at it, because everyone does not get a chance at a title bout. There's so many people throughout, not only now at 135, but through the history of boxing, that would just love to have getting the chance to even for a title bout, even if for sure money or what may seem unfair terms and things like that. Even when we look at Crawford Spence, I mean, they didn't necessarily lowball him, but Spence just had to come around the corner and recognize his real market value. But once that was done, we finally got the fight happen, and we got those. That's in the books of history right now. But for Martin, so all those details are still emerging right now. But it kind of looks like there's definitely some side stories going on that are starting to emerge right now. Like I said, the sources, things like that. Was he really offered a contract, things like that? And even if you get a chance, talk about the process on a fight coming to fruition, and especially in between two cross promotions like that. Who gets the lion's share?
Yeah.
B-side, things like that. Talk about that.
I mean, that's the thing there that, kind of like, gets me is that, this is, for a cross promotional thing. Like I said, Shakur Stevenson is with, Top Rank, and Frank Martin is, under, of course, Man Down Promotions in affiliation with, TGB Promotions, which, of course, people know is usually has their fighters or fights on with Premier Boxing Champions or under Al Heyman or whatnot. So having about especially about of this magnitude, it's kind of like difficult for some folks to go ahead and make. But in this particular case with the WBC kind of like ordering what was going on, particularly with Frank Martin. Given that he was, not necessarily the first in line or whatever it was to, fight for what would have been the vacant WBC lightweight title, but, he was just there down the line. So it was like, okay, did they go ahead and enter negotiations or whatever it was, or, what necessarily happened? Because, like I said, I mean, if you got, someone in what was it? Because the initial thing for what was going down for that vacant WBC belt, they were just going down the line, and of course, the number one guy there was Vasily Lomachenko, which is out. You know what I'm saying? Number 2 is Shakur Stevenson. Number 3 is Isaac Cruz, and he said Isaac Cruz is out. So then that left, Frank Martin there at number 4. So I kind of like found it, interesting that it was Frank Martin that was used to be out there to be ordered by the WBC for those 2 parties to enter negotiations for that particular bout. You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing about it. And I just feel like it's, kind of strange that, like I said, everything in reference to this fight, whether it was the initial announcement of things going into negotiations, and then the fight supposedly being announced, and then all of a sudden it falls apart. All of it was basically on one side, and that we heard zero, from Frank Martin and his party in reference to that. You know what I mean? And I just feel like that was definitely strange. But that just goes into what's going down the line in reference to this particular bout. But as far as like what could happen next, I mean, I'm like, who knows? I mean, you have somebody that suggests that that the WBC continues to go down the line and says that you have Edwin De Los Santos that was there, I guess, at number 6 at this particular point. I don't know if the WBC has updated their rankings as of yet, but he says like Edwin De Los Santos is a good fight in that De Los Santos has been wanting that fight. Yes, he definitely has been wanting that fight, and I will say that De Los Santos was at his last bout. Who was he? He fought Joseph Adorno, right? So I was like, he's been looking for that opportunity, for sure.
Well, who's De Los Santos promoted by?
Well, he's been under a number of those Premier Boxing Champions events, because his last bout against Joseph Adorno was what was that? What was that? July? That was July 9th or something like that. Yeah, it was like it was in the Atlantic City for that Boots Ennis fight that he had against Roman Villa. He was part of that card in Atlantic City, and yeah, they still have him, there at number 6. They actually have Shakur Stevenson now at number 1 and Frank Martin at number 2. So I just felt like that was kind of interesting that they did that. They did that as of a couple of days ago, So, but Edwin De Los Santos is still there at number 6 in the rankings. You know what I'm saying?
Well, what I was going to suggest, and that's why I asked who was De Los Santos promoted by. Even if he's kind of aligned with PBC, we know that, like you just suggested to me, right? even if he's still not officially with them, or still in a sense either independent or on a smaller promotional firm. Is it sabotage? Is it somebody trying to sabotage the fight between Martin and Shakur? And that's what I'm kind of thinking right now. Because like even in all this news that's going on right now, what did Shakur do? Oh, Martin's ducking me. Man, and we Shakur, we love you. We love Shakur Stevenson. Everybody does. But there's nothing in me that would suggest that Frank Martin would be ducking him in a fight. As far as getting in the actual ring and scared to fight and not having a good chance to win. There's nothing about me that suggests that Martin would duck him. So with Shakur, I saw that he said that on Twitter. I was like, man, this dude ain't duck you. It's obviously, as we always say, boxing is a business. And, of course, if the business is not right, then the fight's not going to happen. Things like that.
Right.
So,
right. And that kind of like, goes into the thing, like you said, about the business. It's like, yo, if the numbers ain't right, then you're not going to, go ahead and take that fight or whatnot. You know what I'm saying? So, what's the point of, not even doing that? But the thing about it is like they said, Shakur said that like they offered the dude the most money that he would ever make in his entire career, and he turned it down. I'm like, I don't know about that. But the thing about it is that, he didn't agree to any the thing with Frank Martin is he didn't agree to any financial offer that was put out, according to what I'm looking at. So I don't know like where this whole thing is as far as like how this thing kind of like fell apart. My thing is that if one particular party didn't really share any information on it in reference to, like I said, reference to the initial report that the WBC had, ordered it, that, when they had made the announcement that, okay, the fight was made, it's like, yo, wait a minute. If you're saying the fight is made, then both parties would say, okay, yo, it's on, it's good, it's gone, it's happening. But you didn't hit anything in reference in Frank Martin's side. So that's what's kind of like getting me is that if you ain't even heard from their side saying that, hey, we got, we're working on it, we're trying to get things going, or we ready to go, we gonna go at it, we gonna fight for this world title. Something just, seems strange in that. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, yo, why is it that if a fight, potentially just falls apart, like it just has, I guess one particular party saying, hey, I did everything I needed to do in order to try to make this fight. But if the other side doesn't say anything, who knows how, how this kind of like is going down on it, man. Shout out to Juice in the building, Larry Liston in the building, and Austin Ramos here, joining with us live. Larry Liston here says, like, some say that Al called it off because he wants to make Tank versus Frank Martin. That's a great fight. I'd rather see Frank versus Tank than the Eastside Cruz rematch. Hey, you're definitely not the only one. I don't think really that many people want to see Tank Davis go up against Eastside Cruz there once again, even though, we've had, a couple of reports here and there that Tank Davis could be fighting Eastside Cruz, in a rematch. I think, I've been saying that was probably the easiest fight that they could make for Tank Davis at this point. But if they're able to have Tank Davis going up against Frank Martin, that would definitely be much better, for for us as far as like fans are concerned there than Tank versus Eastside Cruz. Actually, I think it would be I would rather see Tank versus Frank Martin than Frank Martin versus Shakur Stevenson, just to be honest with that. Shout out to Austin Ramos there. Like I said, trying to do what we do here in the boxing source here, so we're gonna keep that content going for y'all. But yeah, back to this thing here though.
Hey, Jaron.
Yo.
You recall back on Twitter when this fight was supposedly first announced. What's the guy's name that's on Frank Martin's side? That's along with PBC. What's his name?
Is it Tom Brown?
Yeah. So you remember it said when they first announced it was supposed to bid or whatever, and you said on Twitter, hey, And I was trying to say, I said, "Oh, you want a drama, right?" You say, "Yep, I sure do." Well, do we have it now? We certainly have it now. All this
Yeah,
chaos of a supposed fight happening and not happening.
yeah, and that's the thing, man. It's kind of, it's kind of crazy that you would have, this type of thing go down, especially with a fight of this magnitude. That would have been one of the better fights there in the lightweight division. Like I said, it's within two fighters that are of course, within the top 10 of the lightweight division. Some may debate if Frank Martin could be there around the top five. But still, it's still a high level fight there at 135 pounds, and could have been one of the better fights that have been made at 135 pounds. But the thing about it was like the circumstances around it, and what was going on before that, kind of like made some people kind of question if a fight of that magnitude could take place or be possible, particularly with the side of Shakur Stevenson, with his main promoter, Bob Arum, him saying that they're looking to have Shakur Stevenson in a fight that would have been, around, what was it, around that particular date that they were looking at, Thursday, what was that, Thursday, November 16th or whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
I'm like, well, if you're going to try to plan to have this fight around Thursday, November 16th in Las Vegas, while they're basically preparing for a Formula One event where they've already had construction and stuff done to kind of like block certain roads and, not have traffic, flow the way that it usually does around that area. I was just thinking like, that's kind of a tough sell to make as far as like, having Shakur Stevenson, who's supposed to be one of your top guys in Top Rank. You're going to put him at that particular time spot. And given that, of course, you have the fall season, it's football season, it's often going, it's, cracking and everything like that. Like, you're going to have Shakur Stevenson be involved in a fight that's supposed to be for the vacant WBC lightweight title, and it's going to be on a Thursday night. You really don't see stuff like that happening. That you have Shakur Stevenson being involved in a fight, or on a Thursday night like that, especially when you're trying to build him up. Over the past couple of fights, you've had him, have fights over in Newark against Robeson Conceição and against Shinichiro Yoshino. You've had him already in Vegas against Oscar Valdez, at one point, so why would you go ahead and try to have him be put back on a Thursday night? He really doesn't have that type of pull to say, hey, we're, fight fans or whatever it is, they're going to be interested in seeing Shakur Stevenson on a Thursday night. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and particularly on top of that, at this point now, as I examine the top ranked stable, we know who's at the top of their stable. Stevenson, of course, Shakur, Big Baby, who's still developing to a headliner in that regard. But who else is on the top rank? And so on top of that, when's the last time we actually sat down and watched a major fight on a Thursday? It doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make zero sense at all. I mean, they're trying to roll back to Tuesday night fights. That's a long time ago with a big following on regular TV.
Yeah.
We're starting to, we're a whole entire age away from Tuesday night fights at this point. So this doesn't make sense. And once again, it kind of defines the fact that, one, Shakur's not a pay-per-view fighter as of yet. He's a good name, but it does have a crossover audience that brings in that additional revenue and additional clicks. No. He's a solid fighter. We know that. He's definitely top tier, but on the business side, it doesn't make sense. And I think that's definitely them trying to reach for a reason to put him on a different day and things like that. But
yeah. Yeah, I'm like, having them on a different day like that, I don't understand it. I mean, I know that they were trying to see about having I mean, if they wanted to fit him on that card, that would have been something. I mean, is it something where, ESPN said, hey, we got this, time slot here, on a Thursday night, after what it would be like 10 p.m., 10:30 p.m. Eastern time. If you want to fit in a time slot to, have boxing, I mean, you could do that. But, as far as I know, over the past year and a half, have they really even had a boxing event that's on a Thursday night for Top Rank? I haven't really seen that. Top Rank on ESPN on a Thursday night. I haven't really seen that happen before. So why go ahead and have that happen now, where you would put someone like Shakur Stevenson, who's supposed to be, like I said, one of your top guys there on Top Rank, put on that time slot? That really, that don't really make sense. Good, kind of like a point here going on by Larry Liston. He says, like, a lot of people aren't interested in fighting Shakur Stevenson since he's managed by Jay Prince. He's the ultimate A side and has all of the advantages, and he's also good. If I was manager, I'd advise not to fight him. Well, it says like Loma refused to fight him, Cambosos refused, Haley lowball, Isaac Cruz refused, Martin refused. Well, I don't know, man. I don't know. Shout out to Android in the building. He says Top Rank ESPN make me scratch my head. Yeah, as far as like what they do, as far as their budget for Top Rank and what time slots or what dates they may have available for Top Rank. It's kind of strange, but Top Rank does what they do in reference to how they have those spots. I mean, I'll put it this way. Here's something, right? Top Rank had, what was it, a few weeks ago, Oscar Valdez versus Emmanuel Navarrete, right? That was on a Saturday. They had it on a Saturday. I know that there was like another card that was there for PBC or whatnot. They had a triple header of sorts there on PBC. This was like over at the MGM National Harbor in the DC area. But Top Rank, had, what was it, Arizona, Oscar Valdez and Emmanuel Navarrete. And shoot, I mean, Shakur Stevenson pretty much washed Oscar Valdez. But you mean to tell me that they could do something for Oscar Valdez and Emmanuel Navarrete that's on a Saturday night, but they're saying, hey, Shakur Stevenson, you're going to go ahead and fit on this Thursday night time slot? That really doesn't seem all too hot for me, man. That's one. And then two, in reference to what Larry mentioned for Shakur Stevenson and who he's under, he does have a lot of hands in his pockets, as they say. You got Jay Prince, you got Bob Arum, you got Antonio Leonard. Some of the, whatever he tries to, get into as far as like fights, it's kind of like a different type of deal than, some other fighters may have. So that kind of like poses a little bit of an issue of sorts. But when it comes to, this fight that they, try to see if they can put together for Shakur Stevenson and Frank Martin, I'm not all too sure. Android says, Thursday also has an NFL game going head to head. Hey, I mean, that schedule was for that Thursday night for sports scheduling, right? You have on Amazon Prime, it was going to be the Bengals and the Ravens. They're going to be on Amazon Prime that night. ESPN has earlier in the evening, they were going to have Boston College versus Pittsburgh. So they were going to say, hey, Top Rank, if you want it, we could put you on this particular spot on Thursday right after the Boston College Pittsburgh game. And if they said, hey, we're going to take it, I'm like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Usually Thursday nights, those are, like I said, they set aside for football. You have that Thursday night football game that you usually have for college football. If they're going to do that, then it was like, hey, I guess you would kind of like push back a couple of, things for ESPN just to have Top Rank to have their boxing on in that particular instance. Now, Shakur Stevenson from a viewership perspective on ESPN does get pretty good numbers. But like I said, that's on a Saturday night. That ain't on no Thursday night. You know, when you have it where football's jumping off. It's still like a weeknight. Still like school day. Following up. Folks got to go to work the next day. So that's kind of like tough to have someone like Shakur Stevenson on that particular point, man. That just doesn't really feel like it works all too hot. Says what is it? Bill says all these fighters refuse, but Edwin is the only one to challenge himself and fight Shakur. All of them refuse. I don't know. Like I said with the thing with Frank Martin, that they said that offer just didn't look all too good. So for these reports to go out and kind of jump the gun saying that the fight was made, I'm like, I don't know, man. Also on the live chat. Well, the thing is, I don't know about this rumor. The thing was, with the thing with Rolly Romero, real quick, he said that he had an injury, right? So the WBA said, all right, so you're saying you have an injury, you're gonna have to provide documentation, proving that this injury took place and that it, kind of like has you back, So if you don't provide this documentation, then we're gonna, either like have you recess or, strip you. And as of right now, I mean, I haven't really seen something to reference him providing that documentation. So that's the thing about it. You know what I'm saying? But my thing was in reference to that particular situation was with the O'Hara Davies joint was that I would have thought that O'Hara Davies was signed so we could get some step aside money so that Rolly and Ryan could fight for that belt, and then O'Hara Davies could fight the winner. Well, at least for O'Hara Davies' point, like, why would I go ahead and say, hey, I want to fight Rolly Romero for the belt when I could wait it out and see if I could fight the winner and still get more money? Because, hey, go ahead and say, I'm the mandatory, give me the step aside, and then I turn around and get more money for fighting the winner of Rolly Romero versus Ryan Garcia. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, that's just me from a business perspective for O'Hara Davies, or being, quote unquote, an advisor for O'Hara Davies there real quick. But I got someone else that's about to jump on in here to this podcast, a great contributor to the podcast, host of Brunch and Boxing on Twitter. For those that haven't listened to it, you can go on Twitter, hit the Twitter Spaces, and you could hit up this guy for Brunch and Boxing. He is, still kind of recovering from the quote unquote robbery of what happened last night. It's MVO Uncensored in the building, man. MVO.
Hey, what's good, JR? How you doing today? Is that Chef Terrell?
That's the chef.
Oh man, where's Boxing Academic?
I guess Boxing Academic is kind of unavailable at the moment.
He's watching fights.
Oh. What's going on? What you guys talked about so far today?
Well, I mean, I'm just trying to go through that whole thing with Shakur Stevenson and Frank Martin, and my thing now is like reacting to it. I'm kind of like scratching my head because my whole thing, or my whole stance on it, and this is coming from what someone like messaged to me, a particular person that we both know, MVO, a message to me, and they said, like, when you see reports about a fight being announced or a fight being ordered and announced, and then it so-called is canceled all of a sudden, and that's kind of strange that it comes from particularly one side, and I'm kind of like leaning towards that, because it's like, well, we didn't necessarily hear from one side while all of this stuff was going on. So you kind of like say, hey, isn't that strange that one particular party hadn't said one word or anything about a potential fight happening, and then after the fight was quote unquote announced, that you still didn't hear from them?
Yeah, but here's my issue and where I push back with that. Why did the WBC cancel the purse bid if they not got word from both sides that they reached an agreement? The WBC would not have canceled the purse bid on the word of one side of the promoter. They had to get word from both promoters saying that we reached an agreement, you can cancel the purse bid.
Well, that is something there. That is something there from the WBC. And on that note, given the recent comment that was made while you got on, someone else is joining on here. Looks like they finished watching fights. It's the boxing academic.
What's going on, fellas? What's going on, fellas?
How was that Harry Greb fight?
Not even sure who that is. I was actually cooking some chicken, and I'm at a point to where I can my hands are free.
Word. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, we're talking about this thing here with Stevenson-Martin, and we got the chat going hot too, man. Shout out to Larry listening in the building still. He says he wants to know if it was Frank's team who said no, or if it was the PBC and Al that they have something bigger in store for Frank. Now, yesterday I've heard that it was under the advisement of Al Heyman that they pulled it back, but I still gotta look more into it. As of right now, given of course it's like 8:30 or something like that. But I did try to reach out direct to Frank Martin's party to see what's going down, and haven't gotten anything back yet on that. But still. I guess going off of what MVO is saying, I mean, as of right now, if you look on the WBC website, they got everything on there still. I mean, it's like, hey, they posted that it was announced, or at least they ordered the bout that, top ranking TGB, we're supposed to go into negotiations and see if they have an agreement by a certain date. And they said, and then they posted that there was an agreement that was reached. So, for it to be pulled back, or the report to say that it was pulled back, that's kind of strange in a sense. But like I said, MVO, when one particular person had told me that it just seems strange that all of that stuff had been coming out, that there's something fishy, man, that someone ain't fully saying what they were supposed to be saying.
Yeah, but how do they answer the WBC then? The WBC had an agreement between both parties, or they would not have canceled the person. Now, my question is, are we even sure this fight is really off? The WBC has not made a statement about this, because they would have announced that it's going to the next contender. So how do we even know that this fight is really off at this point? I don't think we can definitively say that. Maybe what happened is Frank Martin hasn't returned the contract back yet, and maybe Top Rank is trying to put pressure on him to return the contract back because they want to get things squared away. But maybe he is looking at other options, and he's not pulled out the fight yet, but he's waiting to see if he can get maybe a bigger fight.
Yeah.
Can I say a comment real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's kind of hard to understand what MVO saying with all them copyright strikes in the background.
Yo, I'm talking about he's trying to get he's trying to have.
I was trying not to say that, but I just couldn't understand him because Usher singing. Usher about to steal one of our. Excuse me, Usher. Never mind.
Usher out here stealing girls and stealing freaking revenue streams, man. Come on, Usher. Come on, yo. But I mean, he does bring up something though, in a sense of the thing with the WBC, because the WBC, of course, they have the news. You could go in there, you go on the news and whatnot, and they have everything up in reference to, like I said, the initial announcement of them ordering the fight. The thing in there in reference to them, saying what it would take in order for them to, go through with the purse bid. And that at the day of the purse bid, and we have posted it. It was like, hey, it's time. I mean, this is the day for the thing for the purse bid. And I'm like, well, they said that everything was agreed to or whatnot. That's what they posted on the thing for the WBC. But now it says like the report, like I said, that report about it being off came from a certain party or a certain person in reference to this. And I was like, yeah, that kind of like is questionable in a sense. But with like what MVO said, if that was the case, then the WBC would have said, hey, look, if they didn't come to an agreement or anything like that, and that there's no purse bid, or they didn't have any type of extensions, and they would go to the next person in line. And some have kind of like mentioned that Edwin De Los Santos looks like could be the next one in line. But as of right now, haven't seen anything in reference to the WBC saying, hey, talks have kind of like went down the drain in reference to Shakur Stevenson and Frank Martin. So we're going to go to the next person in line, which would be Edwin De Los Santos, and that they would have a certain, time frame or a certain date for them to go through negotiations before we would, say, okay, we would schedule a purse bid. But there hasn't been any update in reference to that. Nothing out there, nothing on their website, nothing on social media, nothing. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Maybe they said, hey, this money ain't it. Here's what we got. Here's what we would like to have for this. Then maybe
Yeah,
say,
but
hey,
he got over $1 million. I don't want to hear about money. Frank Martin got, from what I heard, about $1.3 million for this fight. So I don't want to hear shit about money when it comes to this fight on Frank Martin's side.
oh man.
I said before, it's like even if it is short money in that regard, you're going to take this risk. You take this fight, you win the fight. You're now one of the top people at 135. He's already near the top, but you're in a commanding position to say what you want, who you can fight, things like that. So even if it was short money, you take the fight. You know that. It's easy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could, go ahead and, try to go for that thing there. For that, as far as like, if it is around like that, what is it? 1 point, what you said, 1.3. So, hey, if it's like that, then you might as well go ahead and, try to go for it. You know what I'm saying?
I agree theoretically, but is that risk worth what people try to focus on now, which is win, 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 and like not necessarily if you lose, your stock still rises.
So he can't be Shakur, is what you're saying?
I think it's gonna be a tough night. I think it's gonna be a tough night. The Terrence Crawford camp and people associated with him seem to had a number of the Derek James camp. So at least right now they up one.
Well, hell, look at Baby Charlo, lost to Morrison, came back and avenged that defeat. And now look where he's at right now. So once again, in this age that we don't want to, we're trying to protect our zeros in that regard. It's bullshit. Because like I said, Baby Charles is a perfect example. Like I said, lost the fight, and look where he's at right now, in an even better position. So even if Frank was to lose the fight, he's not dead. It's about who you lose to, how you lose to. I mean, Spence, that's kind of a different story in that regard, but it's about who you lose to and how you lose. But even if Frank Martin was to lose his fight, he's not dead. He definitely won't be dead in that regard.
I mean, yeah, you did bring up a good point there with Mel Charlo. He did have that one loss there. Now, of course, he's the undisputed super welterweight champion, and he is about to be facing Canelo Alvarez for the undisputed super middleweight championships on September 30th. So, like I said, one loss don't really stop no show. You did bring up the whole thing with Errol Spence and how his situation, him getting stopped. But he says he's going forward with the rematch with Terrence Crawford, which will likely take place before the end of the year. But like I said, I mean, that's kind of like a similar situation. What happened with Deontay Wilder when he lost to Tyson Fury in 2020, and then he immediately activated his rematch for that next fight to take place, later on down the line. So, the thing about it is, man, as far as like fighters overall, like that are undefeated, you don't necessarily want to, go out there and say, take a good or safe path to protect your undefeated record. You want to go ahead and try to take those risks. But my thing too, though, in reference to the Frank Martin and I guess the supposed figure is, MVO said it was like around 1.3. I've heard it was like 1 million or something like that. But it's funny because like there are some that kind of like bring up, okay, you do this for Frank Martin and you expect Frank Martin to accept those terms, but you wouldn't accept the terms that were, I guess, posed to you for a fight with you and Devin Haney for the undisputed titles at that particular time. So that's kind of like something there for some people to think about. Boxing Academic, you add something there real quick?
Yeah, I just want to say I agree with y'all. I mean, I want to see the fights as a fan. I want to see the best fights that can be made, and obviously, we know who would be favored in that fight, but that would be one of the better fights that boxing can make for us. So I was just playing the devil's advocate, but obviously, we know who we would favor in that fight, who most people at least would favor.
Yeah, a number of people would, of course, favor Shakur Stevenson in that bout. But it's like it's something there, man. But I mean, we'll see how it goes, man. I mean, I'm still like scratching my head in reference to the whole thing because it's like MVO was saying, if like everything had pretty much been shot down and they kind of like it's all the way out, then the WBC would have said, hey, okay, this, the things for that particular fight couldn't necessarily go down, or what was it? Actually, it would kind of like say that Frank Martin and his team would have basically said, hey, we're going a different direction. They would have kind of like made that. I think they would have made that statement that they said, hey, we're going in this particular direction, so we're not going to be facing Shakur Stevenson at this time. And then the WBC would basically say, hey, okay, since that's the case, we're going to order the next person in line for the vacant WBC lightweight title. And as right now, they haven't really done that yet. So kind of find that, really interesting there, man. You know what I'm saying? But with that being
Can I derail the conversation for 1 second?
Go ahead.
MVO, who that white girl?
I don't remember her name.
My boy. Trying to get a charge on him. Like let me be quiet. Never mind.
Oh man. Yeah, man. Oh goodness. All right, but with that being said, man, that kind of like is what I had in reference to that, man. I still have to see what's up with it as far as like any updates, but yeah, that's kind of like weird, weird that's happening there, man. And for those that kind of like say for Shakur Stevenson looking like a boogeyman or whatever it is, nah. It's all about business, like Terrell was saying, man. Like you gotta put it to the point where, okay, if Shakur Stevenson is gonna get a certain figure, like he's had in his past few fights, and then you're going up against a fighter like Frank Martin, which is gonna be different type of a financial fight for that to take place, then you want to go ahead and get what you can get. It's not necessarily about like saying some people like saying take it short money or whatever it is. You just trying to get what you can and reference short it for all parties to make sense. You know what I'm saying? Now the thing with real quick, you said the thing with Jermaine Ortiz. The thing is Jermaine Ortiz is on a fight card that's coming up on September 15th, he is going to be facing the Antonio Moran in a 10-round bout. So you got him in a 10-round bout. Is he going to turn around and have another fight, 8 weeks later? I don't think so. So they're going to,
he's not even the next available contender anyway. So why? Like, I don't see why we're bringing up Jaron Ortiz. Next available contender is
Edwin De Los Santos.
Elo De Los Santos, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the thing about it is, like, if they say anything, it would be Edwin De Los Santos that would be the guy that's next in line. In I guess, with all the stuff that Edwin De Los Santos was talking about there with Shakur Stevenson, I guess he would say, hey, I mean, I'm ready to go for that fight. But, as MVO said, as of right now, we don't have any formal thing from the WBC stating that Frank Martin is, not involved with the fight with Shakur Stevenson, or like said that there's something where he has like he's going a different direction. You know what I'm saying? And at least for me, and I'll bring this up right now, if they had something else, instead of Shakur Stevenson, this is like something where you say, like, hey, wouldn't they have had something that kind of like hinted at that they were doing something else? So, you know what I'm saying? Terrell, you were going to add something?
Well, I'm sorry, I had to step away real quick. I had to watch a fight real quick. Sorry about that.
Oh, word.
Now, give me the what's the narrative, please?
Now, as far as like who would be next in line for Shakur Stevenson, someone that they had mentioned Jaron Ortiz, but Jaron Ortiz is about to be fighting on, this is a Friday. Well, at least they have Friday night, right? They're going to have a Friday night fight card for a top rank coming up here September 15th. So Jaron Ortiz wouldn't be available, for Shakur Stevenson next. It would be Edwin De Los Santos, as Edwin De Los Santos had his last fight in July. As mentioned, he was in the fight over at Atlantic City in July. So he would be the next available contender out there, for Shakur Stevenson. It wouldn't be and it wouldn't be Zepeda either, because Zepeda is fighting on September 16th. So yeah, those are like Edwin De Los Santos right now is the only one that's kind of like available at this point.
I mean, at this point, with the shrinking options that things like you just enumerated, at this point now, just give him a stay busy fight. That's the best you can do for him right now, right? A stay busy fight at beats for that WBC title. It's going to be hard because, like I said, they have to go down the line and find someone who's worthy to put into that slot with him. Everything. So, other than that, it's just going to be a stay busy fight, and that's not what we want to see. And even as we talk about more with Shakur Stevenson, could a fight with Frank Martin come back into proper talks, into proper negotiations? At this point, I will say no, because that's at this point it's a public nightmare in terms of the PR and things like that. It's like Frank Martin's probably going to want more money, probably going to want more transparency in terms of negotiations and things like that. So we would love to see a fight. And even when it was supposedly announced, I was so excited. I said, well, we've already had a great year. And Martin Shakur fight would have even been just kind of like the cherry on top in that regard. Now that's in jeopardy, as we see now. Might be some type of camp sabotage. But with Shakur now, stay busy. That's the best he can do. Looks like Cruz said he didn't want to fight him, things like that. But what can you do other than stay busy? Just put him back on a regular Saturday night where he knows he can get some good views from that point. Put him back on. Stay busy.
I mean, that is a suggestion, but given that the WBC has already made him the number one contender there, and he's like number one contender, and as of right now, with what they're saying, that lightweight title is vacant. So they're looking for Shakur Stevenson to fight somebody for that title. So I'm still thinking that the fight between him and Frank Martin is still out there and available, because it's like if the WBC hasn't posted anything or made any type of announcement that Frank Martin is not, available, for the fight against Shakur Stevenson, and for them to they would have to follow up and make that announcement that, okay, Frank Martin's not available to fight Shakur Stevenson, so we'll have to look for the next available contender, which would be, I guess, Edwin De Los Santos. So we'll see how that goes, man. We'll see, how that turns out, man. But that's the joint there. That was like a good hour out there for that particular conversation. Of course, I had mentioned, what's on the schedule there for this upcoming weekend. You had Jermaine Ortiz involved in a fight against Antonio Moran. You got Xander Zayas in the bout against Roberto Valenzuela. And Luis Alberto Lopez defends his IBF featherweight title against Joey Gonzalez. And to this day, I still don't understand how Joey Gonzalez is available to fight for a world title. It's crazy. And then William Zepeda faces Mercedo Gesta in a Golden Boy card. So that's the schedule that's coming up on this weekend. The following weekend, you're going to have the rematch with Zalay Zhang versus Joe Joyce. Yeah, I don't know if Joe Joyce is going to win that one, man. I just don't know about that. You know what I'm saying? And then also, we had I guess something where the former unified welterweight champion says Keith Thurman says that he says that he might go ahead and face Jaron Boots Ennis only if a opportunity with Terrence Crawford doesn't come up. And like we said, I mean, Errol Spence activated his rematch clause against Terrence Crawford, so that particular fight is going to be north of 147 pounds. So that means that in the next few weeks or so, we're going to see that those belts that Terrence Crawford has are going to be vacated. So you're going to have all of those vacant titles out there, and you got Jaron Ennis, of course, who is standing as the interim IBF champion. You had Keith Thurman that was looking like he was up there for the WBC, but he had been removed from those rankings or something. So now it's all right, where's Keith Thurman going to go as far as what his next fight's going to be, man? So I guess this would be a potential fight out there for Keith Thurman against Jaron Boots Ennis, even though there's been multiple times where he said he hadn't been all too interested in fighting Jaron Boots Ennis because he didn't see what the benefit for that fight would be for him. But now it seems like he's kind of entertaining that opportunity. And I'm like, well, okay, if that's the case, go ahead and jump on that. I know someone had said earlier in the chat that that Boots could be fighting someone else there, maybe in against Cody Crowley. But hey, if you have someone like Keith Thurman out there, that's the name for Boots Ennis. And it looks like right now a number of people would favor Jaron Ennis to beat Keith Thurman. So hey, why not go ahead and have that fight?
I would.
How old is Thurman at this point? 33, 34?
Mm-hmm.
33, 34. I've given him at this point now what is inactivity, 1-2 fights. And at this point now it's probably one fight. I mean, I know what to say about Thurman. I love what he's done, things like that. But at this point now, he's almost like a talking head now. At this point, just take what's in front of you. Take what's in front of you.
Terrell, you in Tampa. You need to have a bit more faith in Keith Thurman.
Hey, we report on what we see, right? Cool. So that's all we can do. Report on what we see.
Well, looks like
Keith Thurman's one of the few marketable names at 147, and he's the only marketable name left because Crawford and Spencer fight each other. So why wouldn't he hold out for the best matchup and the most money? He is the guy that people are going to want to make their name off of. So I don't see what you mean by he's a talking head by now. No, he's a smart businessman.
I mean, he looks like he's trying to make those moves as far as what he could do from a financial perspective. Shout out to Juice out there in the building. He said that Burning the Box just either stated or posted that Terrence Crawford isn't vacating the belts there at 147 pounds there. That was a few minutes ago. So I mean, if he looks like he wants to keep those belts, I guess he wants to just go a little bit north of 147 to have that fight against Errol Spence, and then after that, just go back down to 147. I guess.
So, speaking on what Terrell and what MVO said, I would tend to agree with both of them. I do agree that Keith Thurman has a finite number of fights left, and it probably is not over 5 fights. But with that being said, Keith Thurman is arguably by credentials, he's arguably the number 3, best guy. I'm assuming that Pacquiao is retired, but he's arguably the number 3 best guy. And while Boots obviously has more skill on the eye test, he still ain't. He need to get past that level before you can just actually move him past Keith Thurman. Even though the eye test, obviously, everyone would favor him. So Keith Thurman, as MVO said, is the top guy outside of Errol Spence and the number 1 guy, Terrence Crawford. And so he's the number 3. And then Boots is right behind him just off of sheer fact of what Keith Thurman has done in the sport and in that division.
I mean, yeah, that is true. There, given what his overall, what I'd say, resume or CV is, he kind of like has kind of proven himself there in the welterweight division, in that it would kind of like make him be a big fight for anyone there out there at 147 pounds, in particular with Jaron Ennis. But for him, it's kind of like you said. Maybe he has like 5 fights in him. I don't know if it's 5 fights or maybe less than that, given that he is 34 years old out there. I just see like him, try to get himself in position to the most lucrative fights possible, or the most beneficial fights possible out there. And, as of right now, a fight between him and Boots would be easily the most lucrative fight possible for him, it looks like. But
real quick, JR, just to put a bow on the Frank Martin, Shakur Stevenson situation. Frank Martin just tweeted, "I ain't duck shit."
That part.
Are you implying that he was listening to the show?
And listen, I'm telling you.
I hope so. Hey, Frank Martin, shut up, Frank Martin.
No, that's a response directed straight back at Shakur.
Yes, it is. That's crazy, man. And this is as of 6 minutes ago. Frank Martin said, "I ain't duck shit." So, hey, I guess that pretty much could kind of go by what you were saying, MVO, that, hey, maybe they didn't have, anything, or at least one that, they didn't say anything about them, not saying they didn't agree to anything or whatnot. Or, they kind of like say, hey, fight, pretty much is, still in the works. You know what I'm saying? But it still goes into, what I say. If there was any indication that Frank Martin was going in a different direction, or that he didn't agree to terms, the WBC would have made a formal announcement saying that Frank Martin is not the guy that's going to be facing Shakur Stevenson, and that Shakur Stevenson has another person that's posted up as his next guy on there for him to face, or for them to face each other for that vacant WBC title, man. So I want to go ahead. I want to see if I could post that thing there, man. Let me see if I could have this thing on here. So yeah, man. I mean, hey, there, it should be on there, man. Let's see. Yeah, man. I mean, there it goes. This is as of 8:52 p.m. Eastern time. On Twitter. Like I said, I mean, he didn't really have much posted on his Twitter before then, but as of right now, you see that, man. And there it is. Frank Martin with the update. He ain't done nothing. You know what I'm saying? So that should tell folks, man. They still, but that kind of like goes into what I was saying in reference to the PR point, that it was just really, really strange to me that only one side was really pushing towards this fight being next or called off or anything like that. I was like, I don't know, man. That kind of like report, that just didn't make sense. That's why, like in this particular joint, on the description, I put reports in quotation marks because I really said like, hey, something just don't seem right with this. Something really don't seem right with this. But I mean, there you go, straight from Frank Martin. He said he ain't done nothing. So hey, get ready, y'all. Get ready, folks, because we're gonna see a whole. I feel like we're gonna see a whole lot of stuff going back and forth. At least within the next few hours or so, because we know how Shakur Stevenson gets down on the Twitter joint. So I mean, we'll see what else we get out of all this. But hey, there you go, right there, man. Frank Martin said like, hey, he ain't done nothing. So. Yeah, there goes the answer of one of the questions that's put there on the scroller. Did Martin duck? Well, he said he ain't duck shit. So there it is. But with that, man, I done went through the schedule that was coming up here this weekend. We had that first installment of the All Access for Canelo versus Charlo. That came out, they kind of like, put out Canelo. He was, doing his thing, talking about learning to speak English back in 2012 or something, trying to become a more marketable fighter. You have, of course, Mel Charlo, working towards getting to this point. The face Canelo Alvarez have been, trying to chase that bout since both of them were at 154 pounds. I think it's really a good little thing too. Just to have these two fighters go at it for those super middleweight titles there on September 30th. As of right now, I have to see like what they say as far as like that All Access. Right now, it's at probably around like 800,000 views right now. So, it's kind of getting good traction there for the interest of this particular fight. But I'm kind of looking forward to the undercard too. We got a few good fights on that undercard. Ugas versus Barrios. You got Jesus Ramos there versus a guy that MBO thinks that may not have much of a chance there, man. I mean that's kind of sad, man. Like, I don't get it, man. Why do you think that dude don't have much of a shot there against Jesus Ramos, man? Erickson Lubin is a good fighter though.
But he blocks all his punches with his face. That's probably his big issue. Like, and we see he ain't really got no chin like that.
Yeah, he does have to work a little bit on that defensive front. He does have to work on that defense. So it'll definitely be a real tough fight for him, man. And the thing there with Jesus Ramos Jr., that's a big kid, yo. That's definitely a big kid. So, I mean, it looks like with him, it's kind of like he'll come in there at least a little bit north of 160 for that fight against Erickson Lubin. While Lubin, to me, has a frame where he doesn't get that far, above 160 pounds or whatever it is. For fight night. So you do have that. You also have like Elijah Garcia versus Jose Resendiz. Of course, Resendiz had that win over Jared Hurd earlier this year, but Elijah Garcia is very good undefeated fighter that has had already 2 bouts this year. Knocking out Amilcar Vidal and then having the win over Kevin Salgado in that Tank versus Ryan fight card too. So. That shapes itself out to be a very good pay-per-view card. You're gonna have Cormel Moulton would have his pro debut against Ezekiel Flores on that fight card too as well. But that's probably gonna be one of those first couple bouts on the card. That'll be like 3 p.m. Pacific time out there at the T-Mobile Arena. So that's we'll get more updates as what other fights will be part of that card leading into the pay-per-view portion there within the next, I would say within the next week. So you do have that, but that's mainly what I got here, man. And this what has it been, an hour and 20 minutes here so far. But yeah, Frank Martin said, hey, he ain't done shit. So I mean, there you have it, man. Like I said, this is going to make for some really, really juicy stuff here over the next few days, because like I said, having that report out when only one side hadn't said anything up until that point, that's kind of wild there. So there's that. But with that being said, that's kind of like what I got here for this particular episode. Shout out to everybody that's joined in live, Brother Terrell, Brother MVO, the boxing academic in the building, everybody that's in the chat that's pitched in. Shout out to y'all. We'll get some more stuff going in here as things go along. I'm going to see about either trying to get Coach Kenny Ellis on here for YouTube on an interview within the next couple of days or so. I just reached out to him and he hit me back. So wanted to see if I could get chop it up with him here in a few. So we'll see about working on getting that here on the Boxing Source YouTube channel. So for those that have subscribed or whatever it is, you'll be able to see that coming up here over the next few days or so. But with that being said, point of boxing is to hit and not get hit, not to send and trade. On that note, folks, I'm out. Have a good evening, everybody.
Later.